Well, let's get some perspective now from Stephen Cook, a senior fellow for Middle Eastern Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. He's also the author of The End of Ambition, America's Past, Present, and Future in the Middle East. Stephen, it is good to see you. Welcome to the program. So I think for most of those who are hoping to hear from the Prime Minister in his speech that a deal has been reached and agreed to, they likely will be disappointed because, as we heard there from Jeremy, if any deal does come through, and optimism is higher than it has been before, it likely would happen when the Knesset is out of session, and it'll be out of session, we should note, until the end of October. So given that there may not be many deliverables he will bring other than perhaps an attempt at bipartisanship after being so divisive for so many years, what is the purpose of this speech for the Prime Minister?
Well, this is really something that the Prime Minister needs to do for a domestic audience to demonstrate that he hasn't wrecked the U.S.-Israel relationship, which is, of course, of utmost importance to large numbers of Israelis. Netanyahu is a divisive character here in Washington, D.C. I think in a city where there's very little bipartisanship, I think there's bipartisan agreement that he is at least problematic and at most someone who is mistrustful. But nevertheless, Israel and Netanyahu do have a reservoir of significant support here. And since his opponents have been accusing him of undermining that relationship, it's important for him to demonstrate that in a bipartisan way as best as he can. But certainly he'll bask in the glow of support from Republicans in the Congress.
Yeah, and I would imagine that, like all of us, he's been glued, and his advisors have been glued to the nonstop political developments here in the United States. Had he been writing his speech last week, many in Israel, and as you know, many here in the United States thought that this was an election that looked like it was Trump's to lose. Things are a bit different now that President Biden said he will not be seeking re-election, and now you have Kamala Harris in the mix. I'm wondering if that puts increased pressure on the Prime Minister, A, given that I don't know that there's much history between the two of them, and B, perhaps he shouldn't put all his eggs in the Trump basket at this point and try to kick the can down the road, hoping for a better deal.
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been playing in American domestic politics since his first turn in the prime ministry in the mid-1990s. And he seems to be someone who feels more comfortable with Republicans. And we know that some of his closest advisors believe that the Israeli government should double down and seek more support from the Republicans. And that is indeed one of the reasons why he is going to see former President Trump, with whom publicly he had a good relationship, but privately President Trump disliked Netanyahu, believing him to be mistrustful. But you do raise the very interesting and important point that there is a new factor here, which is the vice president is now at the top of the presidential ticket. There has been some political momentum since President Biden dropped out in support of Vice President Harris. And Netanyahu is going to have to at least consider the possibility that she may become president. And I think that this initial meeting with her is certainly going to size her up as the potential president of the United States.
And as President Biden, we're probably going to hear more from him tonight, is going to be looking towards the remainder of his term, this lame duck session. We hear he is very committed not only to a hostage deal, but pursuing other policies as well in the Middle East, and that is securing a longer-term peace deal with Saudi Arabia. What are the prospects, in your view, of that happening between now and then?
I think it's quite unlikely that there will be a deal, a security pact with the Saudis. The time is running out. The Saudis have, in fact, all but words said they don't expect this to happen before the end of this term, though they have been very, very interested in trying to complete something before the president's term. As far as a ceasefire deal goes, as you pointed out in your discussion with Oren Lieberman and Jeremy Diamond, there is a sense that there is a political aspect here of Netanyahu's delay in terms of a ceasefire. But of course, at the other end is Hamas, which has over time undermined deals that the United States and other mediators thought that they had. So it seems that the administration believes that it's close to some sort of deal, but I'll believe it when I see it. We've been hearing for the better part of 6 months that a deal would be imminent.
Yeah, and you're so right to bring in the other big player here, and that is Hamas itself, which started this war on October 7th and obviously is a key decider in whether or not they agree to a deal too. This isn't just a unilateral decision by Prime Minister Netanyahu, though it would be really helpful to hear that he's more focused on this than many in Israel and here in the U.S. believe he is. Stephen Cook, thank you so much. Great to see you.